Hello, my name is Robbie Fitzwater. I own and operate Marketing Rhythm. We are a agency that really focuses on retention marketing, helping a lot of businesses with email marketing and understanding how to, again, get their customers in the door and help them coming back on a more consistent basis. So today I wanted to walk you through a concept we've been diving into and we kind of like really love internally. And a way to think about how you view your different audiences, and what stages you want to walk that audience through a little bit differently. So the concept is called audience hierarchies, and it's basically a way of understanding and looking at your audience in terms of who is your most valuable audience, what stages do they take to actually get to that point, and then how do we like reverse engineer that to understand what we need to do to move other individuals from, again, the first touch with our brand, the first interaction, to that, again, that pinnacle of our audience hierarchy. So basically understanding what do they need to move up each of those steps. And this concept was kind of inspired by an article or a concept that Joe Palizzi put together called hierarchies, and where he basically talked about, hey, a Facebook follower is not going to be the same. Basically, a Facebook follower is a little bit less valuable than a LinkedIn follower, and a LinkedIn follower may be a little bit less valuable than a YouTube subscriber. So basically, looking at your social networks and saying like, hey, where does the value lie for each one of those audience members? And when we look at those audience members, each of those are going to be valuable in a different way, but eventually we want to get them into being a paid customer. We have some business outcome we want to see on the other side. So how do we do that? And basically thinking about this in terms of, hey, how do we kind of reverse engineer what our customer journey looks like, and kind of what does each individual need along that journey, and how do we kind of walk them through that to understand what's going to be needed again, before they make a first purchase, after they make a second purchase, and how do we get them over to a loyalty program? What do we do, and how do we get them there? So basically understanding, hey, what does that journey look like? And for different businesses, like it could be that first touch is social. Typically that may be the case if you're, again, getting paid traffic through social, or again, paid social is a great place to do that. Or if it's influencer outreach, and again, influencer collaboration, that may be the first place they touch. But basically taking them from like possibly a social follower, how do we kind of like, again, get them from that first touch into a place where we can own that relationship a little bit more? So maybe, again, influencer to a social follower, how do we get them over to an email subscriber? So moving them up one level where we have more control and more structure around our communication, and just a little bit more, we give ourselves a little bit more tools to actually create and develop this relationship. So again, moving from a email subscriber, how do we get them to be an engaged email subscriber? How do we get them to open our content consistently? How do we allow them to find value in what they're getting? And how do we allow them to opt in for more information or trade some data for some more segmented communications? Those are ways that we want to walk them through that second layer to get them to be an engaged subscriber. Basically, if we can take them from an engaged subscriber to again, engaged subscriber who actually looks at products and views offerings, that's, again, kind of moving them up a step each way. Again, a large product decision, typically if they're making a large investment, you need multiple sources of information, multiple touch points. So this is kind of what we can kind of look at, is how we kind of reverse engineer those different touch points with our brand. So if we can get them to look at product, again, engage in our emails, look at products, we can ideally, hopefully, get them into that first time purchaser. So once they've, again, purchased before, what do we need to do to get them to, again, leverage the product, enjoy the product, and use the product as much as possible? Or kind of what the next stage may be, how do we get them from an engaged, like a first time purchaser who's engaged, to possibly a member of our loyalty program where they have like an actual financial incentive to come back again? How do we get them from there to a second time purchaser? Maybe a second time purchaser who refers, and maybe a repeat purchaser who consistently refers. That's a great way to kind of look at like, hey, what does that audience hierarchy look like? And basically how we can get there is understand, hey, and have a certain level of empathy, understanding like, hey, each of those audience members is going to need something different at each different stage. Do we serve different use cases that we can segment those differently? Do we have different audience types that we can kind of like, are they going to need a higher purchasing range? Are they going to need to purchase more frequently? How do we understand what they need at each of those stages? Sometimes that may be talking to them, that may be engaging with them, and like again through a feedback loop, but basically understanding what we can do to kind of nurture them through that process to move them over to where they're a ideally kind of the top of the pinnacle of one of our ideal customers. And each different business is going to be different, but understanding how do we think through that in a systematic way really gives a lot of power to the group that's actually doing that, and those businesses are really thriving in it. And the ones doing that have a really clear picture of, hey, we've got him here. How do we get him to a second time purchaser? How do we get him to a second time purchaser who refers? Those are where I think some of those really insightful understandings come from, and it really takes a certain level of diving into the business, understanding the use cases, and understanding the business really well. And one nice part about this is, hey, we can automate this through a lot of our email marketing in terms of our email automation. So once somebody purchases the first time, how do we nurture them through that post-purchase sequence to make sure they're going to use the product well? They're going to get as much value out of that product as possible. And it really kind of forces us to think like, how do we really make sure they have the best customer experience possible? Because if they do, ideally those both are mutually beneficial, where they're going to be a more valuable customer for us, but the value they're going to get out of the product is also more valuable for them too. So like we again hold each other's hands and walk through that each of those layers. But in the way we can automate that, a second time purchaser may need something different than a first time purchaser. So again, understanding what do they need and how are they different. Like again, one of your repeat purchasers who purchases a lot or big bundles of things may need something completely different. So how do we kind of automate that process to understand, how do we follow up with them? Like, is this a more personalized follow up? Is this a more personalized touch after that large second purchase? This is where we can kind of think, how do we kind of walk through that funnel and those stair steps? But basically, it starts at the very bottom where we can say, hey, how do we take somebody from a social follower to an email subscriber? Let's have that as one of our goals for social. Let's move them up. And each one of those layers they move up, the more valuable they become. So for businesses, and again, not all audience hierarchies are created equal. Like some businesses may offer subscription options. So like, hey, how can I create a purchase, turn a purchaser into a subscriber? Like again, that recurring revenue is great, or even a bundle subscriber. Like I don't know, like use the Jeff Galloway like Rundle, recurring bundle purchaser. How do I create that in my customer base? So every business is going to be slightly different. But basically, how do I reverse engineer this to think about this through the lens of my business? Starting at the top, who are my most valuable customers? What are the things that kind of loop them together? So are they, again, from the perspective of like use case, are they, if I sell like children's apparel or children's clothing, are they like a parent, a grandparent, or a gift giver? Like yeah, the parents maybe making up the lion's share of those top purchasers. So hey, this person's likely a parent. So again, we can kind of segment those groups and who's going to be purchasing on a higher volume and higher frequency. So hey, parents, how do we kind of move parents from a first time purchaser to from us? How do we kind of stair step those parents up? So what do they need at each of those stages? So like after that first purchase, what do they need to find value in? Like, are they going to understand like how to wash the clothing, how to wash and care for the clothing, how to make sure that it's going to be the right size? When do I know I need to size up? All of those things that you could be communicating through content marketing, really helpful right in this area, because we can keep walking them through those next stages. And hey, if they're finding value, we're a helpful solution to their problem. We're going to be able to really kind of be the top of mind resource when they do need another product. Because typically, if we have a replenishable product or a product that people use on a frequent basis, they're going to need a new one. So if we're top of mind, we're adding value, we're giving in addition to asking, we really kind of develop that reciprocal relationship that really benefits everyone. So this is where, again, thinking about that audience hierarchy really gives those groups a lot of power. And as time goes on, rinse and repeat, where you can understand, hey, this was a great way. I can test this. I can test this messaging to understand, hey, how do I get a second time purchaser into my loyalty program? Hey, this messaging didn't work. Hey, this incentive didn't work. how do I test all of this and understand what's going to be the most effective way to do that? Because I need to constantly be testing and iterating, and this is where those automations really play a large role, which is kind of one of the exciting parts about this for so many businesses is, hey, this is a way that we can really get regimented and thinking about this in a really strategic way to say, hey, let's move them up level, and by the end of the day, again, we're likely gonna have some people at that like kind of like that top of the pyramid in terms of hierarchy, but if we can move more people up there, if we can expedite that process, that's going to bring a lot more revenue to our business, and that's going to be a lot more effective way for us to keep moving forward. So being strategic and being thoughtful here, where again people may get there on their own, but if we can really walk them through, hold their hand, give them what they need, we're going to be ideally getting more people over to that area. We're also going to be doing that and ideally the fastest way possible. So segmenting those strategically on ways they're going to find value in it, and also kind of once they're there, how do we continually expand and iterate on what our audience hierarchy looks like as we introduce new social channels? How are they moving up like within that channel hierarchy? Like, can we get them from Facebook to TikTok or TikTok to YouTube, where we have more and more control, or people are engaging in that content more and more and more? It gives us more power, more leverage, and opportunity to build an audience that is engaged and passionate about what we're doing and how we serve them is a real win for businesses. And that's where I think this audience hierarchy really comes to play in terms of like how does this add value, but also how do we think about the retention process for our customers or the customer journey in a little bit different framework, in a little bit different way to make sure that we're being intentional and thoughtful at every stage. So if you have questions, again, this is kind of like an idea we've been kind of toying and playing around with for a while. We work on building out one of these for each of our clients, but this is something that again we're always having fun with, always evolving on. But one thing, if you have questions, you have insights, or we're missing something in here that you think would be valuable, let us know. We love questions. We would love to help solve some of these problems. So again, let us know if you guys have questions in the comments below. Thank you again, and yeah, we will see you next time. This is Robbie Fitzwater from Marketing Rhythm, and you guys have a great day. Bye bye.